Good evening. Muammar Gaddafi is cracking down and killing his own people, again, using deadly force on the streets of Tripoli and the city of Zawiya, and cracking down on reporters who aren't cooperating, taking away their cameras, trying to blind the world to what is happening. But the videos keep coming. This newly uploaded cell phone video is reportedly from Zawiya. On YouTube, it says it's from today. We cannot independently verify that, however. We do know from numerous reports today that government forces, which had surrounded the city, moved in hard on protesters who were armed with sticks and rocks and, in some cases, guns. Gaddafi forces were said to use mortars and machine gun fire. Watch. Again, we cannot independently verify exactly when this video was taken. One witness we spoke with said what happened was indescribable. A local doctor reporting 15 dead and upwards of 200 wounded. There's a river of blood, he says, running through his hospital. The regime, meantime, saying they have recaptured the city. The exact word they used was liberated, which, again, we cannot confirm. Remember, according to the Gaddafi regime, the Libyan people are all behind him, but are being held hostage by a small number of al-Qaeda terrorists. That's his viewpoint. The regime also says an army of hidden al-Qaeda agents are drugging the Libyan people to revolt. And today, also defying logic, it says the army has captured in that town, Zawiya, 31 opposition tanks and 45 artillery pieces. Well, you've seen the videos over the past few days from Zawiya. You see sticks and rocks and some light weaponry in the desert, but 31 opposition tanks in Zawiya and 45 artillery pieces? Well, that is the government's claim. They also say they did not want bloodshed. In Tripoli, government forces launched tear gas and fired on the streets. Remember, all week, the regime has been calling Tripoli calm, painting over anti-government slogans and sponsoring pro-government rallies, not allowing reporters to go out to areas where anti-government protesters were operating. People who live there also telling us Gaddafi forces have been going door to door, rounding up dissidents, hauling them away, in some cases killing them. Today, despite all this, protesters did come out in the streets in Tripoli, an overflow crowd praying outside a mosque. According to numerous eyewitnesses, they were fired upon. Watch. The voice you heard shouting, they are shooting at the people while they are praying. The government has said from the beginning that they're not targeting civilians. The growing body count says otherwise. There's also the government line about bombings, that the Air Force is only bombing ammunition depots. Well, the sell-by date on that one passed when Libyan jets bombed a militia convoy outside Brega. So now Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif, is peddling a new line, this time on Sky News.
I told you many times, if the armed militia try to attack Al-Brega harbor, this is the oil and gas hub in Libya. I mean, all of us, we eat, we live because of Al-Brega. So without Al-Brega, million people have no future.
So you're dropping the bombs on the militia, that's what you're saying?
No, first of all, the bombs just to frighten them to go away. To attack the harbor.
Frighten your own people, and it can kill your own people.
Not to kill them.
Dropping bombs just to frighten their own people. Not bombing, by the way. CNN's Ben Wiedemann, however, and their crew were there.
Outside the town of Brega, where this ongoing battle is happening, and we watched this Libyan Air Force plane flew overhead. Now I can tell you exactly what the target was. It was us. It was us and the people all around us, which was, I'd say, about 250 individuals, most of them volunteer fighters getting ready to move ahead forward into Brega to engage the Libyan forces. So I guess, yeah, we were the target, nothing else.
In their public statements, the Gaddafi regime has built itself no credibility during this crisis. The Gaddafi is repeatedly blaming al-Qaeda and hallucinogenic drugs for the uprising. Then just hours after we asked a lot of skeptical questions about what those hallucinogenic drugs were, and they couldn't answer those questions, they suddenly announced a big drug bust. Hallucinogenic drugs taken from an al-Qaeda network, they claimed. Except the pills were hospital painkillers, not hallucinogens. And they make you drowsy and constipated, not bloodthirsty. Again, this happened just after we grilled Gaddafi's spokesman, just after he told us the regime really didn't consider the whole hallucinogenic drug theory all that central to how they explained the uprising. They said that we were being sensationalistic, cherry-picking small statements made by Gaddafi rarely. We were surprised, but only long enough to go and check the record.
Kids, 16 or 17 years old. They give them pills at night. They put hallucinatory pills in their drinks, their milk, their coffee, their Nescafe, and then they tell them after they have taken the pills and say, come on, go attack.
There were many units that we have uncovered, Libyans, Arabs, using drugs.
These people have been drugged, children who have been drugged.
Some of them were on drugs.
They are on hallucinogenic drugs.
They are giving them those pills. They are given pills. Take the pills, those pills, the pills.
Those hallucination pills.
Those who offer pills to your children, arrest them.
Well, as we said at the top, some reporters are being hassled now in Tripoli, their cameras, SIM cards confiscated, even though the Gaddafi regime has been saying that foreign correspondents are free to travel wherever they want. With us from the eastern city of Ajdabaya is Ben Wiedemann. In Tripoli, we're welcoming a new voice to the program, David Kirkpatrick of the New York Times. His reporting from Libya has been remarkable, as has the reporting of our other guest, Marie Colvin, from the Sunday Times of London. David, government officials tried to prevent journalists from leaving a hotel today in Tripoli to prevent them from seeing the protests that took place. You actually were able to sneak out, as was Marie Colvin. What did you see, David?
Well, we saw two things. We saw much smaller numbers than we've seen in the past, in part because the Gaddafi government has so effectively terrorized the residents of these neighborhoods where the protests took off, tracking down anybody they could find who had participated in demonstrations in the past, and many people said hauling them away in the middle of the night to detention for days or indefinitely. So there were smaller numbers, about 300 people. But that was 300 too many for the Gaddafi government. And about a half an hour after they left their mosque and started chanting slogans about removing Colonel Gaddafi from power, the security forces unloaded first with tear gas and then quite promptly with bullets. And what was surprising to me, most surprising really, was that they did it while we, the international media, were there. Because we've known for a while that Colonel Gaddafi's government is willing to shoot its citizens, but I was a little bit surprised, and I know the protesters were, because they were thinking of us as a kind of protection. I was a little bit surprised that he was willing to do that with the New York Times, the Associated Press, and the BBC and its cameras in the crowd, sending all of us scattering.
And Marie, you were there as well?
Yeah, I was not right where David's talking about. I know where he is. That's right in front of the mosque. I was where the tear gas was drifting as people ran. It was pandemonium. And it was the same place as, I think a lot of that's due to last Friday. 5 people were killed at this same, from this same neighborhood as they tried to march on Green Square. They were cowed. This week they were just trying to demonstrate. They had flags up from the old regime, which have kind of become the symbol of the rebellion. But they just ran in fear, and you're seeing that fear has come down around Tripoli. People are hiding away more. They're much less willing to talk. Gaddafi's very much sort of tightening his grip on this capital.
And David, I mean, the courage of anybody to come out, a few hundred people to come out, given what they have seen, and as you said, people disappearing, being taken out of their homes at night and disappearing, there was a big question whether anybody would come out. I'm sort of amazed that many people did come out. Were they, I mean, did you see people getting shot?
I saw shots being fired at people, and at that point, I'll be frank, I ran. I talked to 2 doctors when I hid in the mosque who said that they had seen 2 people wounded. I don't know if anybody died today or not. But I must say, I agree with you. In Tunisia and in Egypt and here in Libya, when you see these young men throwing rocks at security forces coming at them with machine guns and tear gas, it is brave is too mild a word.
And David, it's important to point out, because given that my conversations with Gaddafi government spokesmen in the past, and I imagine what they're going to now say about what happened today, they will claim, as they have claimed all along, that these are armed protesters, that these are armed terrorists, essentially, who have either drugged Libyan youth, or that these are hardcore al-Qaeda elements who have tricked Libyan youth. Did you see is that laughable at this point for what happened outside this mosque? And what sort of arms did you see, if any? I see video of someone using a slingshot and hurling rocks toward the troops, but I don't see any guns.
No, there were no guns, there were no knives. And the rock throwing, I think, came either concomitant or after the tear gas. The rock throwing wasn't really a big part of the day today. And these people were not Al-Qaeda, they're not Islamists, and they're not on drugs.
So any notion that the Gaddafi regime doesn't fire on unarmed protesters, not that we needed even more evidence of that, but there was more evidence of that today.
Well, I came back and asked them, what's your response to this? And they said, well, the government supposed to say, well, they were firing into the air. That isn't the way it seemed to me, and, with people injured, I don't think that was the case, but that's their line.
Ben, you're in the East. You were out with anti-government protesters and armed fighters now heading toward the oil refinery town of Ras Lanuf. What did you see?
Well, we were outside the town, and we saw as sort of truckload and pickup trucks and carloads of fighters, and they're fighters in this part of the country. There's no longer any peaceful protesters. We're heading toward the town of Ras Lanuf, which of course is very important because there's a big refinery out there. And really, they were just going as close as they could to the town. The government forces were firing Grad rockets. There were helicopters in the sky strafing some of these fighters. It was a real battle out there, no protest of any sort, really. But eventually, the anti-Gaddafi forces were able to take the town and the adjacent airport and are in control of the refinery. So it represents something of a major victory. It's the first anti-Gaddafi offensive after they were able to take over the eastern part of the country. And expectations are, after retaking Brega, after taking Ras Lanuf, they may be moving towards Sirte, and according to the fighters themselves, who are full of a lot of bravado, they may be heading to Tripoli itself.
Marie, in terms of working as a reporter now, we're hearing reports about the government authorities now taking cameras. Gaddafi several days ago said in his speech, basically, we don't like foreign correspondents. They shouldn't know anything about what's going on here. What are you hearing? What have you learned about how the authorities are now making it even more difficult to report?
Well, they were today after the demonstration broke up in front of the mosque. They were taking not the camera so much, Addison, as they were taking the everything that mattered about them, the memory cards, something called a setting stick, which they mistook for a memory stick. Pretty much anything that could have photos on it. They erased the memory in my phone, which didn't, to be honest, have very much on it, with my Libyan mobile. And it's very chaotic, and they seem to just be looking randomly. Other camera people were able to get through checkpoints without any kind of harassment like that.
At this point, Ben, in the East, it's a war now.
And certainly it's a war. As I said before, the protests are long over, and now the people of this part of the country are organizing themselves in a rather haphazard way to move forward. I mean, what we're seeing is that just truckloads of people going towards the front. There's no command and control structure. There's no organization. It's just everybody hearing the word that the fight is on. They're heading there. So it's very much warfare, but not sort of organized warfare. It's complete chaos, really. Anderson?
Marie, David, Ben, stay safe. Let us know what you think. We're on Facebook, or follow me on Twitter at Anderson Cooper. Up next, an eyewitness to the attack in Zawiya today. Well, he'll tell you what he saw and what he thinks of the Gaddafi government's claims about what they captured from the town. You're saying they're not telling the truth?
Well, Gaddafi, all he's using is lies, lies, lies. First speech was a lie, his second speech was a lie, his third speech is a lie. So all he's got is his lies.
And later, Gaddafi's son, Saif Gaddafi, speaks to CNN's Nick Robertson.